Good morning. It's Thursday, December 20th, one day before the ridiculous prediction on the Mayan calendar. God willing, everything will be okay, and
absolutely,
we'll have a great Shabbos coming up. Excuse me?
I was going to say, if worst could happen is Mashiach will come tomorrow.
Right.
God willing.
Anyway, it's. I just wanted to continue what I said, what we were talking about yesterday for a few minutes, and then I want to go into something else, but a little bit connected. We talked about naming a child after a living person, and there was a story once, and that's why when Dr. Berman walked in yesterday, I made a certain comment that there was once this person who his name was Yisachar Bear. Yisachar Bear. Have you heard of the name Yisachar?
No.
That's one of the tribes.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Issachar. Yeah.
What?
Okay.
What'd you say?
I call it Yisachar.
Okay, so his name is Yisachar, but his name is not so simple, and you'll hear in about 90 seconds why. And anyway, this person's name was Yisachar Bear, and he had a child. I don't know. Let's just say this kid's name was Yaakov, and Yaakov had a baby, so there was a bris. So he invited his father, Yisachar Bear, to be the sandik. The sandik is the person holding the baby during the circumcision, and it comes to giving the name, and he names his child Bear. So the father got all upset, the grandfather that is, and says, "What do you mean? How can you name him Bear? I'm still alive. How do you do that kind of thing?" So they went to the big rabbi in town at the time, and I don't remember his name. And the rabbi says, "Look, I got an idea for you." He says, "Why don't you add a mem and a nun after his name? Instead of calling him Bear, keep the name Bear, but just change it a little bit and add a mem and a nun, which would make it Bearman." That's why when Dr. Berman says, "Call him Bearman," and if you just add a letter or two, and it changes the whole name, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, how do we know that while, yes, it is a different name, but how do we know that we can still count it as the name? You know, you give a name at a bris, you're supposed to stick to that name. So how is it that you could now, after the bris, add a name? You're not supposed to do that. You can't just voluntarily decide to call somebody by a different name if you don't like the name that was given to him by the bris. It can only be done at the bris itself. So he says, "I'll bring you proof from this week's Torah portion that you can add a little bit, you can change it later a little bit, and still be okay. So at the same time, it will still be the name Bear that you gave it to him at the bris, but since you added the mun, Bear mun, it's not so, it's not insulting to the grandfather that he has the exact same name." So let's look at this week's Torah portion, come closer, and it lists all the names that came to Egypt,
right.
And what does it name? And here is Bnei Yisachar.
Right.
Can you read this in Hebrew?
Yeah.
Okay. Tola, Ufuva, V'yov, V'shomra.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So since you can read it in Hebrew, I don't even need the English one over here.
Okay.
So we'll go straight with here.
Okay.
It says, V'nei Yisachar, Tola, Ufuva, V'yov, V'shomra. Now you will notice that underneath the second shin, there's nothing.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing.
Now, there should have been one of these things like underneath the mem.
Right.
You know, it should have been.
Right.
Okay, so here's what happened. So it's actually as if that's not there. You would think you don't even pronounce it. Okay? So what's the story over here? So here's the story.
That's right.
So the story is that he named his son Yov. Yov then went to his father and he says, "Hey, Dad, you know, you named me a very bad name. Yov is a name at that time of a very big idol that they used to worship. Oh. So why did you give me that name?" So you know what he said? His father said to him, and this is not folklore. This is really. Right. He says, "I'll tell you what. I'll give you one of my shins.
Right.
You can keep one of my shins, and in effect, I'll remove it.
Right.
And instead of pronouncing it Yisachar,
right,
we're just going to do Yisachar. and you leave out this one.
Right.
And what did he do with this one? Here's what he did with it.
Well, this is Vayu.
Well, that's
Vayo,
end.
va means
End.
end. Va means end.
End.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So after this incident, he changed his name, and look what happened to his name. Later on, in Pinchas, when it goes through again and it lists all the names of Yisachar,
Right.
he called him now Yashuv.
Oh, look at that.
See, all the other names,
But
Shim.
does his still have the no annotation under the second
Yeah,
shin?
yeah. Because
Oh, yeah, look, it still doesn't. Okay, good.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he gave him this shin. So the other names, Fuva, Tola,
So,
Shimron, remain the same.
That's so cool.
Okay.
Look at that.
Now you can, here it is.
Right.
Tola, Fuva, Shimron became the same, but
That's very
Yov
interesting.
became Yoshev. And if you look
Yeah,
at
look at
Rashi,
that.
Yoshev, who's Yoshev? Hu Yov, that's the same person as Yov.
That's so cool.
Okay, so
So I just don't understand one thing. Let me look at this.
Oh, that's
So
I
this
get
is
it. That's
his
very cool.
name.
So that proves you can add a couple of letters
that
to
means
a name.
it's still the same
Change it,
kid.
right? But he changed it
But
just
he-
a little
but
bit so that it's not.
Where's his name?
Here,
Yosef?
Yoshev,
Yosef.
Yoshev.
Here, yes. See,
Oh.
see, it still doesn't have the annotation
Yeah.
of the second
Okay,
shin,
so
and
gave
he
this- but
added that
this is
shin
an
to his
Uv.
name.
This is Uv.
Where?
The other one is Uv.
Okay, but
Yeah, but it's
That's
just
the
a
same thing.
vowel. It's
Okay.
just the
Okay.
pronunciation.
Okay.
It's it really.
So it doesn't
In
matter.
the Torah,
It's
there
not-
is
it has the
pronunciation.
vav also. But once you add the shin, it changes the
Right.
pronunciation of it.
Right.
Pronunciation of it. Okay.
Yeah.
For those that want to look this up, the
That's
first
very
place Yov is in Parshas Vayigash, chapter 46, verse 13, and the next time is in Parshas Pinchas, chapter 26, verse 24. Okay, so I think that's very cute.
It is very cute. And yesterday you said, like, you should emulate Hashem. Hashem added letters to
Right.
people's names. So
Right.
it's like in that sense,
Right.
too, it also should be permissible.
Okay,
So-
now, you see, that's why, God forbid, when somebody is sick,
Right.
they add a name. You ever hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
That's incorrect.
No?
I mean, that's what we hear and that's what people say, but they should not be saying that.
Really?
Because by adding a little bit, it's still the same thing. Because I just proved it. So what you really want to say is you're changing his name. His name used to be Moshe, and now if what you think you're doing is you're adding another name in front of it, let's say Chaim, most of the times you add a name like Chaim, life,
In front?
or
I thought it was
in front,
behind.
always in front,
In front.
or Raphael, which means to heal.
Right.
One of the angels
Right.
were called that. So what you're doing is you're changing his name. You're not adding to his name. Because that's what you want to do. You want to change his luck, you want to change
Right,
his
change his
mazel,
mazel.
so you want to change his name.
So he becomes Chaim.
But that's not
Chaim
permissible to do that?
Yeah, it is permissible. But I'm
okay.
saying just the way the vernacular that people use
I see.
is that we're adding to his name.
I see.
No, we're changing his name. Adding to his name, it stays the same.
I
And this
see.
is the proof that we just
Right.
spoke about. Changing his name is what will
Very cool. That's
hopefully change his
Very
mazel.
interesting.
Very good.
Yeah, I like that. Good
Now-
little nuggets.
Now, as long as we're talking about on here, so I figured let me show you something else.
Okay.
It lists all the names of the people that came to
To
Egypt, and then it totals. It gives you a tally, and the tally is the total is 70. Okay,
Right, but it lists 69 names.
it actually lists 66. Most people think what you're saying that it lists 69. It actually lists 66, but there are 69 because it's 66 plus Yosef.
Yosef.
And his two children, Ephraim and Manasseh,
Right.
were already in Egypt, so
Okay.
there was a total of 69.
I see.
Okay,
I see.
but nevertheless, it says 70. Shivim means 70.
Right.
So have a seat. Good morning, Dr. Berman.
You just list a little nugget about your name.
But I told it to him privately
Oh, you
yesterday.
did? Okay.
I had a private viewing.
So, excuse me. So the easy answer you can give why it says 70 and when it's really only 69 is that we see that a lot that we round off things. For example, when it talks about giving 40 lashes, okay, it's not really 40. You know how much it is. It's 39.
I thought it was
Yeah. Liz, you've been giving him an extra lash.
He gets
So
more than
it's
that.
only 39. But the Torah says 40 because it rounds it off. The same thing is that when we say there are 40 Av Malachas, major types of work that you can't do on Shabbos. Okay, those are based on the different types of work that we did when we erected the Mishkan, the tabernacle.
But that's 39.
So, and right after that, it says that you should heed the Sabbath. So from there we learn now that anything that was done to build the tabernacle, those are the type of things that we can't do on Shabbos. And the Torah refers to it, and the world refers to it as the 40 sometimes. But it's really not 40, it's 39. So that's one answer you can give, that it says 70, but it's really 69. The other answer, which Rashi gives, is that there were actually 69, but one person, the reason it doesn't list, but one person was born just on the border. So they didn't really come into Egypt. They were not outside Egypt. They were born right on the border. And who was that person? Yocheved, who was the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu. Who was the father? Who was the... Yocheved was the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu. Who was the father? Yes, you do.
I do?
Yeah. His name was Terach. We say it in the Haggadah on Pesach. Okay, anyway, his name was Terach. He was an idol worshiper. And...
Was he Moshe's father, right? Idol worshiper.
No, wait a second.
No, that's
no,
Abraham's
I'm sorry.
father. That's Terach.
I'm confused.
Abraham's
Sorry about that. Moshe Rabbeinu his father was actually a very pious man. I profusely apologize for making that gross error. His name was Amram, and in fact, when the Torah was given, he realized that he could not probably live with his wife anymore, and he separated from his wife because of all the different laws that require in personal relationships, and if everybody, and then he had to go back because otherwise there would be no nation, because everybody would emulate him. Anyway, so Yocheved was born on the border. Now there's actually a pshat they give. I wish I could find the correct English word for pshat. But anyway, there is one reasoning that they give why it says 70 is because Dinah, who was Jacob's daughter, right? He had 12 sons and one daughter. She was born with a twin. And because she was born a twin, when it mentions Dinah over here as part of the 70, it doesn't mention her twin by name, but in fact, Dinah had an identical twin, born simultaneously, a sister,
Okay.
and therefore that makes up the 70.
Did she
now,
live, or because they never mentioned her through the
they
whole...
never mentioned her. No, I can't wait for the movie to come out to find out. Anyway, so Rashi actually asked another question. We know it's brought down that every one of the tribes, every one of the 12 sons were born with a twin. Did you ever hear that?
No.
Yeah, it's brought down. Everyone was born with a twin, and in fact, some say they even, I know it sounds a little gross, but they even married, everybody was born with a twin sister. So Rashi says, if that's the case, then there should have been 12 more.
Right.
Okay? So Rashi gives an answer, they must have died before they came in Egypt. In fact, Rashi says it emphatically. Then it must be, like he gives no other explanation, and I don't have an answer for this, but Rashi says that for those that say that each one of the tribes were born with a twin, we must say that they died before everybody came down to Egypt. Because they didn't mention their names, it must be they died. Now it's a little strange.
Unlikely, because think about it. One of each double died. Why wouldn't like two die and maybe two doubles live?
Well, that's not what my problem is. What?
It's not written anywhere in the Torah that they were twins.
No,
So
that's brought down.
tradition?
That's brought down in many places that each one were born with a twin. But what puzzles me, and of course we have no right even to doubt that Rashi knew what he was talking about, because everything Rashi wrote, he wrote with divine providence. he says it must be that they died. Why couldn't he say, it must be they didn't come down. They stayed in wherever they were, in Israel, wherever they were at the time, in living. Why does he like condemn them to death, so to speak? So I don't have an answer. I just thought of that question last night, and maybe I'll come up with an answer one day. Nevertheless, if we're talking about twins, here's an interesting thing. When you eat something, you make a bracha, right? So let's say you go into Bubby's, and you notice I must mention Bubby's. This is free advertisement. I subtly work it in, like for the myriads of people. Good morning, who listen to my shiur. You're probably getting an influx of customers just by hearing Bubby's mentioned. Anyway, so let's say somebody goes into Bubby's and orders French fries, and takes a French fry and he makes a bracha on it, and puts it down, and then he picks up another piece of French fry. Does he make another bracha on it? No. So here's the question. What happens if somebody, by the way, if somebody has, it's brought down, this is just general knowledge, there's a bracha that we make when somebody has a baby. As soon as he hears the good news, when we hear good news, there's always a bracha that we make. Do you know that bracha?
No, not all.
Okay. Whenever we hear good news, there is a bracha that we make. It's called Hatov veHametiv. If you give me that siddur, hopefully I can find it quickly. And it's a good thing to do. Anything good that happens to you, you can make a blessing. Anyway, it's Hatov, did good, Vametiv, and will do good. Okay, I can't find it in here, and I don't want to make.
I have a siddur. I know where all the blessings.
Okay, so you'll see that there is a blessing that if something good happens, that you make a bracha. It's called. Here it is. Upon hearing unusually good news, which benefits both
yourself and others.
Both oneself and others. Baruch Hato, with the name Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam Hatov V'Ametiv. Okay. Where is it over here? It's 3 from the. Right? Who is good and does good. God who is good and does good. So that's a beautiful blessing to make. When somebody has a son, as soon as he's born, you make Hatov V'Ametiv. What happens if he has a girl?
Same thing.
No. If you have a girl, you say, I'm going to have to pay for the wedding. No. When he has a girl, he makes even a more beautiful bracha. Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Shechiyonu V'Kimonu V'Giyonu Lazman Hazeh. That we have lived and we've reached and we're able to be here. It's whatever. Because girls are better. Don't you know that, Liz? I'm trying to tell you that all my life.
That's interesting.
What happens if he has twin boys? That's how we move into this. What happens if he has twin boys? Barney, good morning. It says say it twice. The answer is that we don't make two brachas on French fries, on two French fries. So we don't say that bracha twice. If you have twin boys, you make one bracha Hatov V'Ametiv. If you have twin girls,
make
one Shechiyonu. What happens if you have a boy and a girl?
Ooh.
Like my daughter had a boy and a girl, twins. What happens then? What bracha do you make? You make the male. So the obvious knee-jerk answer is, which you're already suspecting that it's wrong.
Right, exactly. We're always wrong.
Is that you make both. No, you only make one. You make Hatov V'Ametiv. Okay? And for the same reason that at the same time you always only make one bracha. Now, what happens? Now you got twin boys, and now you're getting ready to do the bris, the circumcision. And you got the moel there, and he's going to do circumcision on 2 boys. Now each boy is obligated to be circumcised. And of course there's a blessing before you circumcise a child, usually male. And do you make one? Does the moel, there's no English word for moel, is there? A circumciser? No, that was Magellan. He's circumcised. You know.
Different thing.
So yeah. So what happens? Does the mole make one bracha or two brachas? So it's brought down that if a mole is going to do two circumcisions, once again he only makes one bracha. He makes one, cuts two. Okay. Now, what happens if there are two moels there? And each one is going to do another child, but you're going to do it at the same time. It still is brought down that still the first one makes the bracha
on the first boy,
and the second moel listens to it, and he's Yotze. How do you say Yotze in English? I don't know either. He is protected under that bracha, and he cuts the second one. And in fact, they go even so much and say that that even if there are two different families, but the circumcision is going to be in the same place at the same time, you do only one bracha, and they compare it to. Excuse me?
Which boy gets the precedence?
Okay, so that they fight it out. They fight it out, you know. And they compare, and the reason they give is just like a shochet. If you go into a slaughterhouse, a shochet stands there. There's a whole bunch of animals. He doesn't on every animal. He doesn't make another bracha. There's a bracha that you make when you shech something that most of you have not made that bracha.
No,
okay, it's simple bracha. Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam Asher K'Shonim Zosav Etzavanu. That's the prefix of many brachas. Ala Shchita, forgiving us the laws of Shchita. So if he's going to do 1,000 chickens a day, he only makes that once. So just like when you slaughter and you cut 1,000 chickens, the same way a mole who's going to cut and circumcise 1, 2, or 3 boys, if he's going to do it pretty much within in the same period without what they call hesech hadas. I'll explain to you what hesech hadas means. Then he only makes one bracha. Hesech hadas means taking your mind off what you're doing. So if you're eating an apple and you made a bracha, and then you got called to a meeting and you come back, you got to make another bracha when you start eating that apple. If there is a span of time where you're taking your mind off what you're doing, so the same applies to the circumcision. Now, the Shach says that it's different than slaughtering, and the Shach is a commentary in the I think around the 12th century maybe. He argues the Rambam says what I just says, but the Shach says that it's unlike slaughtering, because when you slaughter something, you can actually do it. The reason you only make one bracha is because it's possible to do more than one slaughtering in one fell swoop. You can go like this and knock off 10 chickens at a time. You can do it simultaneously. He says by circumcision that really can't really happen, so to speak, and therefore you have to make a separate bracha for each one. Now, the argument whether you can make one bracha or two brachas actually is much more deeper, but I really, yeah. So I wish I could finish this thought. Let me just say that when we lane on Shabbos and the weekdays, and sometimes we take out 2 Sefer Torahs. Do we take them out at the same time, or do we take out you take out one, you take the other? So there's a difference of opinion. And the reason the difference of opinion is because some people say that since it's one mitzvah, you can take them out at the same time, and the other person says that's not really the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to read from it, and we read from it one after the other. And if we read from it one after another, then it's really 2 different mitzvahs. And with that in mind, we're going to separate the idea of slaughtering an animal where it's like one continuous mitzvah, or when you circumcise a child, it's one mitzvah after another, and that's basically the whole thing that I was going to say, that there's a difference with mitzvahs whether it's actually a simultaneous mitzvah or whether it's one after the other.
So what is held to in most
Okay, so
circles?
nowadays we actually make two separate brachas.
Okay.
We put a little time between them,
Okay.
and actually we not only make a little time between them, we circumcise, then we say a whole bunch of blessings, then we name the child, and there's a whole procession, and we
Before you
say,
start
you know,
the second.
and then
Okay.
there is the second one. Now, with this in mind, I heard something cute, that when somebody has twins, at that time, it's a simultaneously birth,
Right.
you know, so everybody, when somebody has a baby, you say mazel tov. What if somebody has twins? Do you say mazel tov, or do you just say mazel tov? And according to this, and most people agree, that if somebody has twins, you say one mazel tov. It was good, it was a good tiding that happened to you. You had twins. It's a unit, twins, and therefore you say one mazel tov. And that is why Rashi says that because Dinah had a twin with her, so it was like one, so that's why really there were two, but it was one. Okay.
Okay,
Have a good day.
thank you, very good.